Hi, George Hepworth here, Grover Park Consulting. Let's build Mike's mobile library. Let's pick up where we left off the other day. At that point, we had set up the options screen and imported the code for our OnStart event. We cleaned up our options screen, got it ready to go, and now we need to attach our SharePoint lists, which are our data source, to the PowerApps application so we can complete the process of setup. Connecting to data is very simple. We're going to start by selecting this little database drum looking icon, which, as the tooltip says, is the data. Click that and it shows any existing data sources in our current PowerApps application, and it offers us the option to add new data. Quick aside, we'll come back to these later. The reason the collections already show up is that they are defined in the OnStart event. It generates the shells. I would call them shells. I don't know if that's the technical term that PowerApps developers would use, but it creates these shells for the various collections, even though there's no data in them at this point. And that's because we don't have a data connection set up to populate them. Let's do that next. Click the plus icon, expand the connectors, and as you can see, the first option is our Azure Blob Storage, which we'll need later, and the fourth option is our SharePoint lists. If I select SharePoint, you will see that it already recognizes that we're in my SharePoint environment under my 365 account. Rather than walk you through that, I'm going to refer you to YouTube videos, which I believe do a much better job than I could do in the amount of time we've got here. So I'll post links to various YouTube videos in the comments below, and you can go and look at those videos, learn how to set up your SharePoint list if you don't already know how, and then come back here and proceed. I'm going to go ahead and select my SharePoint list. On the right-hand side of the screen now, it offers a choice of various sites. What I want is the development copy. I have Mike's library, that's the production version, and it offers the second choice here, Mike's library development. I will select that. I could manually enter it here, but it's easier, and I am all in for easy here. It now offers me a selection of all of the lists in that subsite. I can connect to documents. I'm not going to do that because we don't need to retrieve documents into this PowerApps application. I want the creator table, the participant, and so on. All of the tables or SharePoint lists in that development subsite. Then we click Connect to attach them. And they immediately begin appearing back on the left-hand side in our data sources. As you can see, they're all there now. If we go back, the tree view of the app itself, I should say, go to OnStart and run OnStart. There's still going to be an error or two, and I haven't quite finished cleaning this up. But as we scroll down through our list of variables that we're setting and so on, we can now see that this collection, which previously showed an error, now works correctly because this SharePoint list or table is now available, and it can go ahead and generate those collections. And as we scroll further down, you'll see that they're all populated without errors. Go to the end of the list here. Now, there are going to be some additional variables. I'm going to keep those private for security reasons and refer you to other YouTube videos on how to set those up. Specifically, these refer to the Azure Blob Storage Location, where the images that we use will be stored, and it contains paths to that as well as the access key that you need to connect to that. So rather than expose my folder ID, I should say not key, but folder ID, expose that folder ID to you, I'm going to refer you to a couple of YouTube videos where Shane Young walks through this entire process. Does a much better job than I could anyway, and it's already done, so why repeat it? I'm going to pause here, set up my Azure Blob Storage account, and then come back and finish. Okay, we're back. I've gone ahead and connected up my Azure Blob Storage account. Because it was already set up for the production version, setting it up here was really pretty simple. The last thing I need to do is rename it from the default to the name that I will use in this PowerApps application, and we'll call it Mike's Mobile Library Dev. And that means I'm going to have to adjust my OnStart to reflect that. So one brief pause while I do that, and we're back, good to go. Mike's Mobile Library Dev now is set up as the default location, where even though we are using a different alias here with the suffix dev, it is pointing to the same storage location in my Azure Blob Storage account. Okay, we're all good to go. We have one more error here, and we'll look at that really quickly. It tells me that it wants to navigate to a screen that doesn't yet exist. Go back to the tree view. We have only the options screen. So our remaining error will be corrected when we start moving the rest of the screens. At this point, we've gone through all of the data connections except for one last element that I wanted to hit again. We talked about this a couple times earlier, but I wanted to point that out here while we're looking at it. Mike's Mobile Library Dev is the Azure Blob Storage account. The diamond indicates that it's a premium service. A PowerApps per user plan or PowerApps per app plan will be required during playbacks for apps with this connector. What they don't say there is that you will pay extra to do this. We have the standard connections here. These do not carry the diamond, which indicates they're premium services. And we have our connections to the library, Mike's library development site on my SharePoint site. So we're ready to move on to our next phase, which is to copy the rest of the screens and set them up to work with our data. We will go back and start with the startup screen. Once that's in place, we'll be ready to go. As always, if you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button to tell me you like it, and add any comments you want to make about what you see, what you need more information about, what elements of the PowerApps application you feel like I went over too quickly. I feel like I'm going much too slowly. But if you feel like there's anything that needs to be reviewed or highlighted or looked at in depth, please let me know in the comments, and we'll follow up at a later date. On that note, it's time to go. I'll see you next time.